Up here. Real fast, let's look at the PowerPoint. Their questions. Do low-income black children, and more specifically black boys, dislike learning? This is their question. Do you think that most low-income children, and more specifically black boys, equate learning to or with the notion of acting white? This is an actual study, so they're doing more than just theoretical. Okay, we went over the central argument. We did that. Okay, cool. This is what you have to know. This will still get referenced today in a lot of readings. A lot of writings. 3 types of minority groups. They argue for 3 types of minority groups. Alright? 3 types of minority groups are autonomous minorities. Technically minority in a numerical sense. Right? Immigrant minorities, voluntarily immigrated to the United States, meaning folks or Afro-Caribbeans or whoever just came to the United States on their own, and more specifically in terms of low-income black folk, particularly descendants of the slave South, and this term became popular, still is. We are referred to as involuntary minorities, forced to be in the United States, through the process of slavery, minority population subjected to some form of oppression. All right, cool. Conceptual model. Now, according to Agbu and Fordham, Smithia Fordham is actually a student of John Agbu. This is a conceptual framework. They ultimately argue that low performance in substandard schools is adaptive. What does that mean? That's powerful. And I do agree with this part of the argument. Ms. Bella.
That they have learned to do what is expected of them, low standards, equal low performance. They've adapted to.
Well, they have adapted to that way of being. Why is that way of being inside schools adaptive? What does that mean? Is that a handout?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they try to do any better, that it would actually hurt them in a way. So they adapt to doing what is expected of them, just to keep in school, just to keep on that line.
That is what they're saying. But let's just open it up for a second. We just can't leave it hanging and move on, right? They're saying yes. That low-income black children, for whatever reason, have got it in their head. The ones who don't do well in school, the ones who are on the brink of being dropping out, the ones who are on the brink of being punished, etc., etc., etc. That in part, unconsciously and consciously, they engage in low performance. It's part of an adaptation process. That it is in their interest. At least they've got that in their minds. To perform well. Now, I think ultimately what they're arguing is this. I agree with it generally, but we probably disagree. It's a smaller argument. They're arguing that acting white is adaptive. It's adaptive because they can get along with their peers better. That's generally what they're arguing. So if I do bad in school, children won't make fun of me. That's adaptive. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing, Ferguson is arguing, these kids are performing, she talks about a group, a gang inside the school called NFL, Niggas for Life, right? I don't know if you've gotten there yet. And she talks about that adaptation of identity, centered around gender and race, resisting, pushing back, coping with the disrespect, is actually adaptive for the psychological mindset and spirits of young black boys. At the end of the day, they walk out with bad grades and a potential for a bad life, but at the end of the day, they walk out with themselves. That's what Ferguson's saying. That's not what they're saying. Okay? So, conceptual models. Job ceiling. There is no mobility, socioeconomic mobility, as it relates to education. You go to school and you learn for what? For what end? That is not the model in more suburban, more well-off, more resource, more white schools. They would never get in the mindset of those students that they cannot make it. That's illegal, in fact. Right? Survival strategies. They talk about 3 survival strategies for black children. 3 survival strategies for black children. The collective struggle as an adaptive strategy to making it inside schools. Uncle timing for some other black children as an adaptive strategy for making it through school. This is outgoing forward and hustling. Really quickly, collective struggle. This is probably the incorporated group, the group that's trying to, you know, struggle with double consciousness, right value system, black value system, got to deal with it all, but we're going to get through this and we got to do it. Uncle Tommy, these are folks who just simply assimilated. Listen, I'm going to completely adopt another way of thinking and being because I really believe, for whatever the reason is, that's the way to be. And that becomes an adaptive strategy, right? And then we have the hustlers. And those are the bad guys. Those are the guys who are doing things they shouldn't be doing inside the school. And that becomes an adaptive strategy to survive inside that school. All right? Let me hurry up. Collective identity, oppositional identity. These are two terms we throw around. Collective identity. Collective identity really fast. The oppressed group rebels in the group identity. The oppressed group rebels in the group identity. This collective identity is argued in terms of oppositional social identity. This is an identity that is not coherent with the symbols, the values, and meaning of the dominant system. This is not necessarily racial or cultural, but just not consistent with the dominant system. Oppositional culture. An oppositional cultural frame of reference is another way of thinking about oppositional identity. This is a black perspective, according to Agbo, with regard to oppositional identity. Also, fictive kinship. We need to know this. Social support networks primarily established by low-income blacks as a way to ensure collective identity. A fictive kinship is a relationship or a network of people who are not necessarily related by blood, but who have some reciprocal social and economic relationship. This is common in low-income black communities, and definitely the fictive kinship is even common in big, public, low-income schools of color. Fictive kinships run in those schools as well, and students rely on them, particularly the students who don't do well. Capitol High was the name of the high school they were at, low-income neighborhood in Washington, D.C., predominantly black school, 99% black. Okay, this is ecological study. Ethnographic study will bypass this, but this is the type of study that it is. Right? And then, okay, I want to get to Mr. Gibson. Okay. Okay. You can jump in? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Mr. Gibson, let's give him a nice warm round.